Alright guys, we're going to do a few more stories here. I don't know, just been really thinking a lot, over the last few days, and figure get some of these old memories on tape. It's always good to have this stuff backed up as you get older because you forget stuff as you get old. But yeah, I was thinking about back when we were kids, some of our first camping excursions we had, and invited some neighbor kids over one time, and I forget what this one boy's name actually was. Everyone in the neighborhood called him Spanky. I mean, we grew up in the South, and it was out in farming community and things like that. And but anyway, so we're all out camping. I think it was a couple, at least one person from church was with us, and we got talking about this graveyard that was out in this old cornfield, and there was some woods in the center of it. Those of you who grew up in the country areas, there's a lot of old grave sites and stuff like that. But we got talking about how this area was haunted. I mean, it was kind of crazy because if you stepped out in those woods, it would get to where the wind would start blowing real heavy. You'd start hearing lightning or hearing thunder and seeing lightning and all kinds of, I mean, it was like all hell was fixing to break loose. But as soon as you step back in the field, it would stop. That's not what this story is actually about. We were talking to the pastor's son about this, on a camping trip, and this neighbor kid, and he's kind of freaking out, and so we play off, okay, well, this thing's haunted, and the ghost's name are Aqua and Jaqua. I don't remember how we come up with the name, but there it is. But we messed with this kid like all night, so it's like, hey man, I'll be right back there scratching on the tents and stuff like that, and not usually my brother being the oldest of all of us, he was the ringleader in this kind of stuff. But yeah, so if you're ever out, you're camping and stuff, you hear stuff in the woods kind of scratching around, it's probably Aqua and Jaqua coming to get you. Um, I remember going back. I think it might have been like maybe 12 or something like that, and we went up to Maryland. I went out, was doing some squirrel hunt with the cousin, and he was a couple years younger than me. But yeah, I guess we was probably about 12. I was probably about 12, maybe. Anyway, I went out. I had a single shot shotgun, and I've been squirrel hunting since I was a kid, with my dad and all. I don't remember how young I was when I got first squirrel, but by that point, I'd shot several in my life, make great stews and stuff. Anyway, so my cousin gets his first squirrel. He's got a little 22 repeater. He shoots this squirrel, and you would have thought this guy had just shot the biggest deer in the country. I mean, he's just going on and on about, he got his first squirrel, and he comes up and he picks the squirrel up. Well, it was a male, and he's going on about the size of its testicles. Like, I'm like, well, okay, I mean, why don't you mount them on the wall or something? You're so proud of it. I mean, it was, to me, it was kind of like, I didn't really understand getting that excited over shooting a tree rat. And, I know in deer hunting, when we get a buck, we go by rack size, things like that. And apparently in the squirrel world, they go by, the size of their testicles. I didn't realize that, but, I've shot a lot of, squirrels with big nutsack, so I guess maybe I probably should have got it mounted on the wall, called Boone and Crockett. Hey man, this dude's testicles weighed like, 0.6 ounces. Is that a record? I don't think they actually keep up with that, but hey, maybe they do. Maybe it's just a Maryland thing. If you're in Maryland, is that a thing there? I mean, I don't really know. So, you tell me. But on with some hunting stories. We've had a lot of different types of stories and stuff growing up, and I can't even remember all the different times we've been hunting. I remember back when we were like too small to even carry a gun, so we didn't have a gun. We'd go out squirrel hunting with Dad, and we'd be dragging limbs through the woods and things like that behind us. He's trying to do his hunting, go deer hunting. Well, you got two knuckleheads who are kind of lame, dragging stuff around the woods, making too much noise. You're not going to get a deer, so we learned how to do some squirrel hunting. I remember my dad had a Ivor Johnson double barrel 12 gauge. And I wasn't going to shoot it. I was too young. I knew I want no part of that smoke wagon. But my brother, being who he is, like, I'll shoot it. So my dad lets him shoot this gun, and he's got him pull it. You need to pull this thing in tight because it's going to kick, and only pull one hammer back. And well, my brother, he kind of knew it all back then. And he gets up there and he pulls both triggers at the same time. This old double barrel shotgun. Blows him back onto the ground. I mean, he's just laid down on the ground. He didn't shoot again. Yeah, so if you're going to fire a double barrel shotgun and you're like 8 years old, don't pull both at the same time. I remember the first time I'd shot an old single shot shotgun. I was sitting flat-footed on a barrel, 5-gallon bucket, and I pull up and I just shoot this thing, which the recoil off of it when you're that small is just boom and flip you straight up over on your back. It was fun memories and things like that. But as I got older, I really got into deer hunting pretty heavy and all. And finally went out deer hunting with my dad. I think I was about 18 years old. And this area was like known for really good deer and stuff. A guy I worked with, a buddy of mine, and he'd set me up. He's like, "Hey man, I want to get a nice buck. This is the place to go." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So set up some stands. I've got my stand facing over this. It used to be a pumpkin patch. It's got some busted up pumpkins and stuff from the harvest and all that stuff. He's like, they're always down here. I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So we're down in this area, and there's a creek that runs back on the back side of this field. I'm up in a thicket up in this tree. And over to the right side, there was a hill that comes down. And I had my dad sitting overlooking that hill as well, because there was always deer coming from both directions. I'd done some bow hunting up there. Missed one. I had a good shot at one. I thought I did. I draw back. As soon as you get the arrow, knocked in, you get back and you got pressure on the bow. This thing steps in behind a tree. Couldn't get a good shot off. On the way up the tree, the quiver falls off this cheap bow I bought. So I've got one arrow, and I'm like, well, that's all you're going to get is one shot. Anyway, well, yeah, that's fine. But there was a very heavy let off, and I got to let this thing off because I can't hold it. And as soon as I let it off, the arrow just it drops to the ground. And it was just disgusting. The deer takes off. I'm like, that's fine. I'll ease down there, and I'll get my arrow. So I'm going down, I'm grabbing the quiver, and I'm like hanging half off this tree, reaching, trying to grab the quiver with my arrows. And I look up, and there's this big buck just staring me right in the face. I'm like, great. Well, by the time I get my stuff, it's gone. There's nothing else coming back out. Well, gun season comes in. I go out hunting with my dad. He had a 7mm Magnum by Weatherby, had a 30-06 Savage, I think it was at the time. And we're sitting out there, and my dad worked a lot. We both did. I didn't work quite as much as he did at that point. I'd gotten into this one company just driving a fork truck. He worked like three 12s, and he was off for 2 days, and he worked 4 12s and then off for 3 days. So it was pretty nice. And so I actually had time to rest, unlike my dad, who worked 7 days a week at this welding job. But we go out, and we're set up in this. I'm set up in my stand. He's in his stand, and it's just right as the sun's coming out. You're just now finally able to start seeing stuff. That's the coldest part of the morning, it seems like. And I hear something under me, and I'm like, what is that? So as the sun's coming up more, I'm looking, and there's this 12-point buck. I mean, just beautiful. And I was like, man, that's the perfect deer. Well, I can't shoot through my steel stand, obviously. And I'm going, man, if I can get Dad's attention, maybe he can get this thing. Because I'm like 10 foot up in the air, so he could get a shot at this. And I'm over there, and I'm kind of like looking his way, and I'm thinking if I stare over there enough, maybe make a hand motion or something, he'll catch his attention. So I'm trying to, see if I can get his attention as quietly as possible, and nothing. And I'm like, what the heck? So when he looks over here, he'll see this thing, and I'm sitting there, and this buck, it's blowing and stuff, and I'm like, man, here in a minute, we're going to get this thing. Well, about that time, I hear this sound coming through the woods. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I'm looking over. Well, my dad's roped off to the tree, and this tree's standing, and he's asleep. I'm like, are you kidding me, man? The buck of a lifetime sitting under the stand, and you're asleep. So I'm like, well, how am I going to get this? So I'm like, well, if I startle the deer and get it to jump out in front, I might can actually get a shot off. So I've got the rifle ready, and I just stomp on the stand real heavy. And I should have just waited, but I was young, 18, buck fever, wanted to get this deer. And this thing jumps up and takes off, and I get a shot off. But there was just no way of hitting it, And, of course, Dad, like, he's waking up. Well, did you get it? Did you get it? It's like, no, I was just trying to wake you up, man. You're scaring everything off with your snoring. But, yeah, so, I mean, that was kind of one of our little hunting fiasco deals that we had. But I've got my nephew now. He's 19 years old. He'll be 20 next year. He's really wanting to go deer hunting. Now, I've gotten a lot better at deer hunting since then, so might go out and do some hunting with him, teach him a few things and stuff. But I was thinking back to just some really what I thought was funny stuff that went on when we was working this little amusement park. And he's trying to be like, Mr. Cool out there, because there's a few girls around his age and all, he's trying to play it like he's cool. That wasn't why we both went and got a job there. We got a job there to have a fun summer. We were right on the beach. It was supposed to be hang out, shoot the breeze, hit the beach at night, just, have some cool uncle nephew time. But He was girl crazy as heck, man. And it comes up this like torrential downpour. There's lightning pop and red lightning and all kinds of stuff. It's like, oh man, he's standing out at this big old, it's like an 80-foot tower swing, and he's operating this thing in this storm. And I'm on the radio. I'm like, hey man, you don't need to operate that thing in a lightning storm, because if it hits that tower, it's going to run right up that control panel where you're at. You know, so he's like, well, do I need to let it finish? Let him know. So he stops. I said, don't stand in the rain. So he comes running to this ride called a swamp ache. It was an indoor scrambler. Hey, I had it made, man. Air conditioned, freaking be 100 degrees outside cooking. But I had it made because I was in the AC. Well, he comes running across the park. And it was fairly new construction stuff. So, and we hadn't been there very long, so we didn't really know the walkways and stuff. But he's running. He goes to cut across. Well, he missteps on the transition that goes from this black top over into like a sandy area. It didn't have mulch and stuff at the time. It was just sand. Well, there was a big drop right there. Well, he twists his ankle and just falls and rolls to this big mud puddle. I mean, this thing is like full of water. Just boom, and he kind of jumps up, looks left, looks right, like nobody's seen him. But I seen it. I'm over behind this little, it was like an archway. It had some growth on it. Well, I guess he didn't see I was there until he comes running up that way to get out of the rain. I'm like about to fall off this doorstep, hanging onto the door, laughing so hard because it's funny, you know. He's all, you always mess with me, Uncle. What are you always doing stupid stuff, man? I mean, I can't help but mess with you and joke about that kind of stuff. But, you know, these are just some of the different memories and stuff. You know, as far as like, you know, when I was a kid, I didn't do anything weird, you know. It's not like I was, oh wait, maybe I was. I think I was about 11 or 12 years old. I went through this phase where I was wearing these like parachute pants, I think they called them. And all bright colors, all real loud stuff, things like that, you know. I didn't care. I liked it. It was comfortable to wear. So, you know, that's what I wore. But of course, I caught a lot of slack from my brother over there. He's always been blue jeans, you know, t-shirts, stuff like that, you know, which is basically the way I would go around. But when it was summertime and you didn't want to wear shorts, you had to go to church. Like, oh, you can't wear shorts to church. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So I grabbed those pants and I'm putting them on. My mom's like freaking out. Oh, you need to put on. So I don't feel like that. My dad, he's like, yeah, do what you want. You know, that's fine. He's, I can't believe you're wearing that stuff. But hey, if that's what you want to do, if you're man enough to wear it, I'm man enough to call myself your dad. Which was usually his response on a lot of stuff. You know, my brother butched his hair up. I think I told that story in another video. As to what his response was, if you're man enough to wear your hair like that, I'm man enough to call you my son. But yeah, Dad was pretty cool growing up. Now, you didn't want to, you know, go and do it. If he said don't do something, you didn't do it. It was just that simple. But yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot of stuff in life, you know, that's kind of, a lot of really good lessons learned and things like that. You know, I can remember growing up, Dad'd be working on a car or something. He's like, hey, hold that light for me. He was like, okay, so you're holding the light, and he's wanting you to hold the light on this bolt. All right, well, my brother would go out and work with him. He'd hold that light on that bolt. Me, on the other hand, I'd be shining the light on that bolt, and then I'd get to look around, mosquitoes biting and stuff, and I'm like moving the light all over the yard, you know. And he's like, hey, hold that light. So I was sorry. For like 5 seconds later, I'm, you know, with the light again, you know. And he's like, I finally grabs the light. He's like, can you hold that light right there? It's like, yeah. It's, stop looking around. It's like, oh, okay, you know. Hey, knucklehead, you know, you got to learn how to do stuff, you know. But I changed my first water pump when I was like 8 years old. I mean, there's not many people that can say that. Worked on a lot of cars over the years. You know, we do our own maintenance on our vehicles and stuff now. I don't take my vehicle anywhere. I don't let anybody turn a wrench on my car at all. It's always myself. You know, if my brother's going to come out and help, something like that, that's fine. Even if it's something like front end work, stuff like that. You know, we just rebuilt the whole front end on the Jeep this past year. I don't trust people under the hood of my vehicle, because I've taken it, one time I took a vehicle in for an oil change. Okay, I'll take it in and just have them change the oil. But when I went to do the oil the next time, they cross-threaded the daggum drain plug. So I had to go and redo all that crap, you know, buy oversized plug, self-tapping and all that, make sure there wasn't no shaving in the pan and all that. So I don't trust people to mess with my vehicles. As far as like sustainability and stuff and surviving and things like that, you know, you're going to have to know how to work on your vehicles, because there's not always going to be a mechanic, or the prices are going to go up, and you're either going to be driving or you're going to be broke down somewhere, having to rely on public transportation. You know, that's how we're going to tie this video into some sustainability and survival. I guess I should try to do that, because that's what the channel's supposed to be about. And we're still going to be doing a lot of videos on that. It's just been real cold and rainy the last few days. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not going out in that mess. I'm not. But yeah, so I mean, just kind of looking at, the different things that have happened in life, or some of these different stories and things like that. Uh, I had another one that just popped in, but I was running my mouth and forgot. You ever had that happen? Happens to me all the time. But yeah, so let's think about this for a second. Man, I don't remember. Oh, no, I do remember. So my brother's Air Force. Okay, he's coming out of basic training or whatever and stuff. Well, he comes back in North Carolina to visit, and I was like, hey man, I got this great place to go shooting. It's the town drunk that told us about. But I was like, okay, that's fine. Well, I'd bought some big game rounds for my 30-06. I'm talking, this stuff is for water buffalo. All right, this is some stuff I'd had ordered in and all, and I was like, yeah, come out, we have to go shoot. So we're out shooting 12 gauge 22. I pulled 30-06 out, and we're shooting at this range, and it's disintegrating 4x4. Just, I mean, I'm impressed. I'm like, heck yeah, and well, these cops pull in, and I'm like, what the heck is it? Where you got us? I said, I don't know. This old Mike Porter said, or I shouldn't use his last name, whatever. But old Mike said we come out here and do some shooting. I said, it's public range. Well, it was a cop's range that is no longer public because people were blowing the 4x4s up with guns. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, if they pull in, they were really cool about stuff. Probably had to do with him wearing his Air Force gear or whatever, his flight jacket stuff or whatever you call that thing. But talked to him and all. By this time, we've only got the 22 out, and they're like, yeah, we don't really let people shoot down here anymore. So, well, why not? So, well, as you can see, people are blowing the 4x4s all the heck with high-powered rifles. I'm like, oh, is that what's doing that? Okay, But they're like, yeah, so don't come down here and shoot no more, which I never went back. It is what it is. But, if you're getting information from people, make sure that it's not the town drunk, because you can't trust what the town drunk tells you. There's a reason he's known as the town drunk. But, yeah, so, we had some weird stuff growing up, camping and things like that over the years as kids and stuff, about the weirdest story I had was the Aqua and Jaqua deal. We've always done some weird stuff, as far as like fishing and stuff. I remember I was probably about 15 or 16, something like that. And we had this big bass boat. We had quite a few boats in the yard at the time. And my brother had his John boat he'd fixed up. Well, there was this big bass boat. I wanted to fix it up. So I flipped it over, fixed the bottom up and all. It was a semi-trawl hole. I had a trailer and all that, and get my dad to help get me some decking for it. And we put this aluminum decking from US Air in it and all. And we take this thing out. And we got family out there. Well, it's my boat. And I'm not getting any time on my boat to go fishing. I'm still out catching everybody, But I wanted to use my boat. So I'm talking to my dad. I was like, hey, man, this evening I'm going to take my boat out and do some catfishing. He goes, that's fine. Do what you want to do. He said, it's your boat. So I don't want anybody in it with me. He said, that's fine. Do what you want to do. It's your boat. So I jump in the boat, where you're sitting there eating fish, because everyone's been fishing. And so I jump in my boat. Everyone's still eating. I'm jumping in the boat, and I take off. I'm sitting in the middle of the lake. And, of course, all the cousins are like, hey, man, come back, pick me up. I want to go fishing with you. I'm like, no. You can sit on the bank and you can get eaten by mosquitoes, But I guess that was pretty bad. But, after a while, you kind of got to get away from family, Most of our family reunions and stuff like that growing up, the first few days is fine. But I got where, I'm not a very social person as far as like being around a lot of people. And after a while, most people get on my nerves, or I get on their nerves, and that's just the way things are sometimes. Everyone has an opinion, I value my opinion. I value others' opinion, but you're not going to force an opinion on me anymore than I can force it on you, and that's just kind of the way people are. But, yeah, so talked to my brother briefly this morning. He was like, I remember I had the sleepwalking incidents and stuff like that. Apparently he still sleepwalks when he gets stressed. I did go to borrow his hair clippers one day, and he keeps them locked away. I think he keeps them off-site in a storage bin. So I couldn't figure out why he was doing that. Boy, it's because apparently he still sleepwalks, and I'm guessing he don't want to shave his head. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to set some clippers out on the bathroom counter somewhere, and maybe he'll come sleepwalking through and get to work on his head one day. I don't know. Maybe we can get it on film one day. I don't know. We're going to try to anyway. But yeah, so growing up, was up in the woods a lot. We used to take bikes and stuff like that. Did a lot of sledding. So we had this old swimming pool, this blue swimming pool, more plastic ones you buy like at Walmart or, pretty much anywhere. And it snowed a lot. So we're like, hey, man, let's go out. I think this might have been back in 94 or something like that. They had what they called the blizzard in Piedmont area where we lived at, North Carolina. And it's like, oh, okay. So, they got this really cool, blizzard out here. We got most snow I'd seen. It's nothing compared to out west. But I was like, okay, so we're going to go out and do some sledding. Well, originally we were just kind of like going in our snowsuits, just kind of laying on our back, sliding down the hills. Like, okay, well, we can get more speed and something. So we come up, we get this old pool, and my brother, he's like, hey, man, I'm going to walk down through here and just follow my path, when you come down. Well, you can't steer a swimming pool. Believe it or not, it just can't be done. So I'm coming down this hill in the swimming pool. What I don't realize is he's got this thing coming straight up to a cliff. All right. And I come flying off this thing, and I'm like, man, it's picking up speed. It's a lot of fun. And all of a sudden, you're in the air, and the back of the pool comes up, smacks me in the back of the head where it comes off the thing. I fall, it breaks the pool in half, and we're tumbling down with this blue plastic crap all over me. But hey, I was having fun, and I didn't die. So, that was one of the cool things about it. And so we used them them two halves of that pool. The rest of the day, there wasn't much left when we got done. But, we've always done kind of weird, cool stuff like that. Fill up tractor tires when we were cool or when we were younger. Dad fill up these big tractor tires. We'd climb up inside these things, and hang on and go rolling down these hills and stuff up through the woods and fields and stuff. It was a lot of fun. I've seen some videos about stuff like that now, and these people take it to an extreme level. I mean, they're like coming off sides of mountains, bouncing over roads and crazy stuff like that. If you're going to do that, don't go anywhere there's a road at, but it's a lot of fun to go spinning down in these tires and stuff. But we had some cousins, and I'm telling you, man, I thought it was the most natural, easy thing in the world to go through down these hills in these tubes. It was cheap ride. It beats most of the rides that you're going to find at amusement parks. Well, we go out with these cousins, and they can't go like 2 foot without the tire falling over on them. It's like, wow, and after watching, you're wanting to go back on it, and you're like, hey, man, let me show you how it's done, and get out of the way. So you jump in and you take off down through the hills again, and then you come back up, and then you got to wait on them. And it's like, hey, why don't y'all just wait down at the bottom of the hill? You can catch us and carry the tire up for me because you're not going to make it to the bottom. But, I guess that's kind of bad. But, I guess just kind of different between city folk and country living. Living in the country, you're going to be a little tougher on some things. You're going to have a little bit more fun without having to spend a bunch of money. I remember they had like, what was it, Simon Says or something, some sort of like round thing with lights. And they're like wearing this thing out, and I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, okay, so it lights up. Yeah. I said, you got to do the same pattern. They're like, yeah. And I'm going, how is that fun? I mean, honestly, how is that fun? You're going to sit here and you're going to beat on this piece of plastic. That makes no sense to me, but, have at it, whatever, And they were talking about, how smart this one cousin was because he can mimic the patterns. I'm going, well, it's not really being smart. It's just being able to remember what it does, and you got to really be into that. I mean, if you want to sit in one spot and play with a little light, tap, 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 man, go for it. Me personally, give me a tube, I'm hitting the hill in the back, But we had this old chicken coop, the big old shed. I think it was for chickens originally. We were using it for rabbits. And on top of the roof, it had some bad spots in the roof. And back in the day, what you did is if there was old cars and stuff laying around, you took the hood off the car and you throwed it up on the roof. And it blocked the rain on it. And so we're up there. I think it was an old Ford hood or something. But anyway, I have a dog in this area, and he's like raising Cain, and turns out there was a bunch of black snakes up in this hood. I don't know if they were breeding or what, but there was a ton of black snakes in the hood. They're crawling all over stuff. So Dad gets down there, we're trying to get these snakes out of this hood and all that crap. We figured out a good way. I'm not going to put it on YouTube, but, we did get rid of the snakes. But, yeah, so, I mean, there's just all kinds of weird, crazy stuff that can go on in the woods. You'll be out in the woods and just out of nowhere, some crazy squirrel, you're out squirrel hunting. Went out, and I think I was about 16, and I don't know how many squirrel I've shot at this time, but every now and then you run in that situation where you just don't know what the heck's going on. And I'm way over, we're overlooking this bottom, my dad and I take a shot at this squirrel and miss. I'm like, it happens sometimes, you know. I'm like, well, crap. So I take another shot, and this thing, you know, I guess it figures out where I'm at. I mean, pretty good ways off. It figures out where I'm at. It comes flying down this tree, running up the hill. I mean, and it's booking. I mean, this thing is like, comes diving straight up at my face, you know, kind of like old Griswold's Christmas, come flying out of the tree. Well, this squirrel is like freaking insane, come flying up. Like, I'm like, what the heck, man? I've never experienced that before. I'm like, dang, man, shoot it. Daddy's got a 12 gauge. Like, shoot it. He says, get the heck out of the way. So I'm trying to get out of the way. This squirrel is chasing me through the woods. And I don't know if this thing's rabid or what the hell's going on, you know, but this squirrel's chasing me. He's jumping from tree to tree, like barking and shit, trying to jump on me. And I'm like barely missing this thing. I'm like, what is going on with this thing? Well, we finally get, and he gets a shot at this squirrel. But I'm like, you think we should eat that thing? He's like, I don't know, man. He said, it might be rabbit. I don't know. But yeah, so as far as, you know, Griswold's Christmas and stuff like that, I don't think it was Christmas time at that time. But I understand what it is to be chased by a daggone squirrel, you know, through the woods, maybe not in a house. But yeah, it's kind of a freaky type of situation. So on that note, I'm going to leave everybody off here. Everybody have a great Christmas.